Coming up on 21st Century, a new technology that takes you into the heart of a scene using virtual reality to create empathy in a humanitarian crisis, one viewer at a time. In Kenya, surviving as a refugee in a city, urban refugees striving for acceptance and dignity. Hello and welcome to 21st Century. I am Adeshewa Josh. Is it possible to stand in the shoes of a refugee or know what it's like to face an Ebola epidemic? A new technology may make that possible. Virtual reality video. Here's our story.
Humanitarian crises are all too familiar to television viewers. Civil wars that cause huge movements of refugees, worldwide pandemics, and natural disasters like earthquakes and tsunamis. This is the way most of us are used to seeing these heart-wrenching events, on a screen in front of us, watching passively. But what if you could step into the frame and actually feel what it's like for the individuals on the ground?
People come out of it feeling enlightened and often moved and often ready to take action. A lot of people automatically say, well, what can I do? How can I get involved?
Garbo Aurora is a creative director leading a team at the United Nations who are using cutting-edge technology to raise awareness, empathy, and funds both to respond to humanitarian crises and to bolster support for a new set of sustainable development goals around the globe.
Virtual reality is the ability to really take part in a story that usually you're only a passive spectator on. And it's giving you the possibility to walk in another person's shoes, understand where they live, see what their world is like. And you actually get this sensation of feeling like you're being there.
Depicting virtual reality in a 2D medium, such as the one you see on your screen right now, will never truly represent what it's like when viewing VR through a headset. By using multiple cameras that can record in all directions and software that can stitch the images together, virtual reality creates an experience that enables the viewer to see a movie from every angle, above, below, and behind.
It's exciting for the UN, to be involved in some of those early experiments of how we're trying to tell stories, make these films, and work with some of the most cutting-edge people in the industry on it.
So the UN reached out to us and connected, and we realized that there was a great opportunity here to tell some very important stories and to tell them in a way that we thought would be totally new and highly impactful.
Aaron Koblen, a technologist working in Silicon Valley, is the co-founder of Verse, a virtual reality production and distribution company.
It usually consists in the portable form of a mobile phone that connects directly into a viewer. So whether that's a higher end version like the Gear VR by Samsung or a Google Cardboard unit, you have basically the same idea. Lenses which are using sensors to orient you and convince yourself that you're somewhere where you're not. This is the most basic VR viewer. It's a Google Cardboard. So it comes like this, and then you quickly assemble it like so. Drop your phone in here, like that, so you can look around and actually be immersed. The way that I define virtual reality at this point in time is basically the hacking of your senses to convince you that you're somewhere other than where you are. Often, I think of it as a sense of vulnerability. So one of the things we've realized in some of our stories is you have a heightened sense of empathy and a heightened sense of connection as a result of that vulnerability.
That heightened sense of connection and empathy was exactly what Garbo Aurora was looking to create at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Not only to inspire leaders to take action, but also to influence donors to increase funding for disaster response efforts.
I'd started experimenting with using innovative ways of advocacy. And I started talking to a lot of different partners and people. What could we do that would be incredible? And someone said, I just came from a meeting at Samsung and, with some of these other virtual reality headsets, wouldn't it be amazing if you got all of those elite people who could actually go to a refugee camp, or they could go to an Ebola clinic? I just really felt it would get our issues highlighted.
One of the things we were most excited about was the potential to get these headsets onto heads that really make the decisions and have impact in the world. We were able to put it on the heads of these change makers, and for a brief moment put them on the ground in the refugee camp. And it's, I think, a really powerful thing. You could see the way that it was impacting them.
In addition to the screenings at Davos, virtual reality portals have been set up to view the films at high-level political forums around the world. One of the leaders who made use of a VR portal was Samantha Power, United States Ambassador to the United Nations.
So what the portal does is it doesn't just give you those faces, it's not like newspaper, but you feel you're right there.
The virtual reality film that she watched was Clouds Over Sidra.
Clouds Over Sidra is a short film in virtual reality about a girl named Sidra who lives in Zaatari camp, which is a Syrian refugee camp in Jordan. And it is a story about a young girl who has been there for a year and a half and is giving you a tour of the camp, of what it's like, what her life is like. When the film debuted in Davos, it was a sensation to everyone we showed it to. They come out of it very deeply moved. I'd say half the people who watch Clouds Over Sidra cry.
We're seeing generally a much higher level of engagement. I mean, one, because they're actively engaged in looking around, but also, I think, a higher level of emotional connection and empathy.
The film was then integrated with the Secretary General in the Kuwait pledging conference for Syria. He made everyone at the reception at the pledging conference watch it, and it really made a big difference on getting people to pledge more and to care more and to be more involved. And then we cut a version for UNICEF for its face-to-face fundraisers. The way they do that is usually someone with a clipboard on the street in Europe or in different countries. So they thought, well, what if we got people to experience virtual reality on the street?
看了这个影片过后，我就觉得世界上原来还有很多小朋友是连干净的水都没有的。
I was a little depressed about the situation for the people there.
Quite sad. They don't have a good environment to stay. We try our best to help them.
Early reporting from UNICEF has shown that when using virtual reality, they've doubled the effectiveness of their fundraising efforts.
The fact that virtual reality is so real means that we have to think a lot more about the ethical aspects of what we do.
Tom Kent is the standards editor at the Associated Press and is a professor at New York's Columbia University.
There's a psychological impact that VR has that's greater than the impact of photos or video. It hits you at a more elemental level. When somebody's watching a video or someone's looking at a photo, they know that they are external to the scene and they're looking in at something. VR operates at a different level. It's putting you in the scene and working on your brain in ways that I don't think is really completely understood.
We got the blessing to do one on Ebola. Waves of Grace is an Ebola survivor who is basically, you get access to her prayer and you feel like you have this intimate moment with her as she's praying to God.
Waves of Grace was integrated into the UN Secretary General's International Ebola Recovery Conference, which garnered $5.2 billion in pledges.
What people really feel moved by is they've never been in a poor slum, in a hut. They've never been at an Ebola burying site. So many people said that they've seen that picture in the news, but actually being there while a body is being buried is something else. It makes you think about this crisis and other crises in a different way.
The most important thing is transparency. If the VR producer is trying to advance a political cause or a social cause, that needs to be made clear.
I think one just has to be really open and clear about one's methods. We're going to constantly be evolving and thinking about these ethics even more as we go forward. We privilege the human story. You know, it isn't so much the UN did this and this is what's happening and this is what you should do. It really is a quiet sort of, let's put yourself in the shoes of another. But it definitely is something that we are just at the beginning of. Being at the forefront of it, especially for the United Nations, gives us a lot of advantages to tell our stories and make a difference with a whole new generation of viewers, and especially a lot of young people. Because if we didn't do what we do with virtual reality, it would fill up with games and escapism. When a 15-year-old would unwrap his Christmas present a year from now or 2 years from now, he wouldn't have Clouds Over Sidra and this UN series there for him.